My song of the child. I came from mom not breathing and a doctor saved my life as an infant. I was discolored and on the brink of death on my birthday March 17, 1986. I wanted to hold and pet a baby bumblebee, so in my backyard I had a bee crawl on my finger, and before he flew away, he gave me a little sting. I went to my mom crying, who was in the kitchen but came outside. Mom said, "Mark, what's wrong?" I just kept crying. I don't think I explained it well. The yard was awesome. There was a shed and a car in this fenced backyard. There was a nice wooden fort that was big enough for 3 boys to fit in. It had a little jungle gym attached to it with swings and some bars. In elementary school, we cut and pasted and colored and slept in class. After school was the fun. I was a natural fighter. My first fight was 3, we were very young kids and it innocently ended. I however had a craving for fighting FRP, watching 3 Little Ninjas on television, and I secretly wanted to be like Tum Tum. The 90s had some good TV programming growing up. My brothers and I would swim outside in a circle around the pool, spinning the water in one way and then going against the water once we made a current. It was a lot of fun outside in the pool. I heard Phil, the middle child, needed to be watched near the pool jets and around vacuums. He was a cute boy with blonde hair and blue eyes, being about 2 years older than me. To enter the house from the yard you would enter the kitchen glass doors. We had a nice wooden table and the sink had a nice window with small curtains of a somewhat tan color and picture design. There was a fruit hanging basket that was hung up to the ceiling, and a banana would be on it. My mom loved when Lipton was putting little statues in their teas, and she would collect them and place them on the window sill. In the kitchen I opened the fridge and grabbed a mushroom and began choking. I ran downstairs to my dad that couldn't remove the food from my throat. Dad saw the mushroom lodge in my throat and he desperately tried grabbing it, and failing and panicking he began thinking of performing a cricothyrotomy. With no medical training it would be makeshift and I might have died by his attempt to restore my airway. At last, his fingers gripped the mushroom and yanked it out of my mouth, saving my life. It was in that room my half-sister Crystal was laughing, giving me cheese, saying I looked like a rat. It happened that we lived by a church within 1 block from our house. On a day the church was having a breakfast to feed donuts and drinks, I imagined fruit punch in a nice cup with ice would have been pleasant. Having been stimulated by this thought, I went to the church and knocked on the glass doors, and the pastor didn't open the door for me and tapped his watch. Angry I didn't get any food or drink like I wanted, I had a little fit of rage where I went to their yard wailing, yelling and hissing. In the churchyard was trees that had cords and tree stakes in the dirt. I began pulling out a few. Out of the darkness of the ground was a home of the underground bee's nest. These are super bees that would. These bees didn't lose their stingers after 1 sting or 10, they kept stinging me, and I walked back to that church door. The pastor's eyes are now wide-eyed, coming outside to help me and spray me off with water. He was successful with only water to get the bees off me. I could have been hurt more by the bees, but they showed me mercy by leaving me alone. The time from start to finish was painful. So many things could have happened, like no hose available and he had to call 911. If the fire department had not come, I could have been stung so many times that I went into anaphylactic shock, and I was probably getting close to it. My sister offered me the cheese because I was swelled up and looked like a rat. During recovery from anything I would go into the family room. There was a sofa and a classic 90s big screen TV facing it. In another corner was a smaller couch and a Littler TV for gaming. At that Christian church, I was Baptist and was a part of the Royal Ranger Club they had. That is until my parents fighting went into the church and my dad decided not to go, and then my mom and then me. Eating in the family room was my guilty pleasure when I was allowed to do so. I would go into the kitchen and eat pink Nesquik from the can using my hands. I got the controller for the Super Nintendo all sticky too. Phil introduced me to the music of Tupac Shakur. We always hung out at people's houses. I remember hanging out listening to the radio, and I was the extra person my brothers brought around people they met, and I tagged along. We all had fun though when California Love came on the radio when it was new while we were playing pool. How bad it must have been for them to fight to the point of separation and possibly divorce. My dad was a gifted learner, he was a computer programmer. There was a lot to like about my dad as he was the team leader of computer programmers. In his spare time, he developed programs after being hired that helped corporate American companies with shipping and storage software. The kind of software that the store register would use to track the inventory to reorder supplies when inventory was low. His talent went far once he was hired to help a company with customer support issues succeed. My parents would fight and throw or knock chairs or other furniture over while screaming at each other. My dad left and I stayed home while my dad went to a hotel with his money. I seemed to manage school. I was glued to watching the Disney Channel and other stations. The TV was set up to easily order movies and I kept paying to watch the next Space Jam repeatedly. I rented it at an estimate of 50 to 100 times at about $5 each purchase. My dad moved into a trailer away from the house at a park granted by my mom's desire for space during this separation. We visited and stayed separately with Dad. I remember how there were a wasp nest in the trailer park. We encouraged each other to kill some of the wasp nests in the park. Phil glitched in his application of wasp spray while Fred and I were fine, but Phil was spraying the can in his face when we started. My parents reconciled their marriage eventually, each seeking stability and each one trying to change and do better, and my parents had 4 kids. My life did not change much because I still watched my Nickelodeon shows in the kids' den to watch my cartoon shows or play Sega or Nintendo. Life with my dad drastically changed when a county garbage truck hit his car and it attached to the garbage truck and my dad had no control and he needed spinal surgery. This accident became the sole reason my dad began taking opium to treat his back pain starting about 1995. I watched as my dad had to stop his job and be on disability while my mom began working. I'd be watching TV in the kids' den. The kids' den was in a dining room left of the entrance of the house as you entered. It had another TV and an amazingly comfortable couch that I would stretch out on, spending years in this room. At the right of the entrance of the house was the adults' room for family meetings and they may have used it for the Christmas tree. This room had nice white couches and the entrance to the room was French glass doors. The household was large including my oldest brother Fred who is a comedian and a gamer. He was my rival in the early games. Playing Zelda: Link to the Past as we battled for time to play the game. We had to come up with a waiting list to play Zelda. He was learning on the internet how to hack websites. He discovered prank calls and the most memorable one was in Bensalem as across the street there was a park. There was a pay phone we used to prank call 1800 numbers on. This one night we were upstairs and outside and there was a truck parked by the phone. Fred walked over to the park and called 911. Fred came back and we were upstairs looking out the window as a swarm of police with possibly guns drawn approached the trucker. He changed his voice to sound older and he made it sound like the trucker was going to commit suicide due to pictures of his kids he had in his car and his failed marriage. Even threatening the cops if they tried to stop them. Despite the operator's attempt to keep him on the phone, he naturally hung up and ran back home. We were laughing, curious while this unknown trucker was being questioned for pictures and a gun. Drawn approached the trucker. He changed his voice to sound older and he made it sound like the trucker was going to commit suicide due to pictures of his kids he had in his car and his failed marriage. Even threatening the cops if they tried to stop them. Despite the operator's attempt to keep him on the phone, he naturally hung up and ran back home. We were laughing, curious while this unknown trucker was being questioned for pictures and a gun. My brothers suggested a night out in our backyard telling stories, and I was excited as I heard the idea of us 3 boys spending the night outside. Fred asked, "Mark, tell us a story and try to scare us."